What a good day.
Good.
Good to be here. Good to be with everybody. We have to really work on remembering where we left off on these texts because I think I got it. So I think we're just starting with the Isaac narrative. We sort of finished off with Abraham and Ishmael and the rest, and sort of now we're getting back to the Isaac narrative. He's married, and now it's time for children, of course, because we have to sort of keep getting the line extended. We need to have more descendants so they can be numerous as the stars of the sky. So we need to have some kids. So I think that's where we're up to. Rick, do we have a verse? This is the story of Isaac, son of Abraham. So the mid-chapter 25. So what is that verse?
This is 19.
Verse 19. So yeah, we're going to call it on 25:19. So we're all singing from the same piece of sheet music, and we can begin there. So Rick, you want to give us get us going here? Actually, before we do that, let's say our blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu
melech haolam
asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Amen. Amen. Now let's take it away.
This is the story of Isaac, son of Abraham. Abraham begot Isaac. Isaac was 40 years old when he took to wife Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean of Paddan Aram, sister of Laban, the Aramean. Isaac pleaded with the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was barren. And the Lord responded to his plea, and his wife Rebekah conceived. But the children struggled in her womb, and she said, "If so, why do I exist?" She went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord answered her, "Two nations are in your womb, two separate peoples shall issue from your body. One people shall be mightier than the other, and the other shall serve the younger."
Okay, right there. So it's never easy. I mean, it's never like they got married and they had kids and it was wonderful. There's always a story. There's always a problem. And so here we got a double-decker problem here. And so they're married, and then she can't conceive. Isaac does a little prayer, a little consulting with God, and mazel tov all around. At least that was quick. She conceived. But of course, again, nothing can be easy. So she has a lot of pain during the pregnancy. She's very uncomfortable. And she finds out she's got twins. Mazel tov all around. I think that we'll get the first twins in history right here, if memory serves.
Yeah.
So, it's a good time had by, well, not really a good time for Rebecca, apparently, but a good time generally speaking, I guess.
That's a good time.
Yeah, she's not having a ton of fun. And then God says to her, "Hey, this is a situation. Two nations are in your womb, two separate people, right? And the older shall serve the younger." Spoiler alert. God doesn't have the courtesy to give a spoiler alert, but that's okay. We can forgive the Almighty for such things. But yeah, it's a hard time. She's not feeling great, but at least now we have a reason for it. She knows the score. And again, mother of great nations. Good to be the mom of great nations, I guess sometimes. We'll see how it goes, how great it is. Oh, it's time for the birth. Tyler, you want to pick up from there?
When her time to give birth was at hand, there were twins in her womb. The first one emerged red like a hairy mantle all over, so they named him Esau. Then his brother emerged, holding on to the heel of Esau, so they named him Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when they were born.
So it is 20 years of trying to conceive. One, because they said that he was 40 right when they were married, so it took him about 20 years. So maybe after 3 or 4 of them, he might have prayed then. 20 years is a long time. Though there's also some discrepancy depending on how old Rebecca is as well. We have a sense of Isaac's age. Rebecca, we get the impression, is a skosh younger. And so it might not have been 20 years of trying to conceive, depending on how old she is. So then we have the twins, again, mazel all around, red and sort of gross looking, and he's Esau. I don't know, maybe got a little fur on him. I'm not sure what they call that when the baby has a little fur. Yeah, there's a term. It's like,
Mary's baby, I don't know.
Yeah.
no, there's like a fur that like sloughs off, afterwards. A little different. So anyway, he's Esau, because he's red, and it's a play on words with the Esau and the hair and the whole thing. So again, I love this story. It's the idea of the second brother emerging, holding on to the heel. So they named him Jacob. That's the way to say heel in Hebrew. Akev, it's the heel. And it's just a fantastic image of just going, no, let me out first, because he doesn't know the story yet. That the older is going to serve the younger, so he wants to be the older one. He wants to be the better one. And the midrash of having him trying to like pull his brother back inside so he can jump out first, and then like the wrestling even then. Just a fantastic, this is a delightful image, of course. And so they named him Jacob, and Isaac is 60 years old. So even in the beginning, before they're even born, there's like seeds of conflict. Jacob's already busting his chops, and he's not even aware of what's going on, but he's already being a problem child. And he will continue to be a problem child, as we'll learn throughout this midrash, or this parsha. Tyler, give me one more.
When the boys grew up, Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the outdoors, but Jacob was a mild man who stayed in camp. Isaac favored Esau because he had a taste for game, but Rebekah favored Jacob.
Oh my goodness. It's just, again, the trials and tribulations of parenthood and of watching your kids grow up. And, for those of us who have siblings, it's like, sometimes siblings are more alike and sometimes they're very different, right? They have different personalities, different energies, different interests. And these two are supposed to be really stark in terms of the comparison, where Esau is sort of like the alpha male, he's out there, hunting, fishing, and gathering. He's a man of the land. He's outdoors. He's, getting all muddy and dirty and, doing manly things outside. And Jacob's like, I'm going to stay at home, do a little cooking, do a little reading, whatever it might be. A little bit more mild, as it says here, a little bit more even simplistic in his way. Simple taste, simple pleasures. But he's, in the house, it gets, it always gets extended to the idea of like, again, as I'm sort of doing, of Esau being this very stereotypical sort of manly man, sort of like brute, but, but very effective in his outdoor ways. Whereas Jacob's a little more, dare I say, nebbishy a little bit, he's sort of at home, sort of mama's boy. And then you get a little bit more after this of like, Isaac favored Esau because he had a taste for game. Isaac won dinner, kind of like, I think he's just really, I don't know. I think it's like, as I said last time around, I just wonder if it's Isaac's level, sort of in a way, sort of where he is, that he understands meat. He understands what tastes good. And so, he can grasp that much more tangibly than sort of the, I'm extending this a little bit of the philosophical, some intellectual, sort of, more mild-mannered Jacob. He doesn't relate to him in the same way, where he knows that that Esau is the bringer of meat. Like Esau is the one who gives him, the ribeye steak, nice bone-in ribeye, perfectly cooked to a nice medium rare, maybe. Getting hungry already, if that makes sense. And like, Jacob's there with his lentils, and it's like, yeah, this ain't right. But Jacob likes the meat. And Rebecca, of course, like her brutish, oafish, sort of other son, she can't relate to him. She can't really relate to him in the same way because it's not her thing. And so she favors Jacob. And so, like, right away we see this thing being set up where there is differences, and these differences are going to be exploited, and they're going to be sort of a lot of tension in the story because of the parental favoritism and because of the brothers are so different. There's bound to be a little family tension. Any questions so far? As I say, the Bible is not a parenting manual. and because none of this ever works so well. So let's move onwards and upwards. Sharon, you're first on my screen here, so you want to unmute and pick up.
Got it. Once when Jacob was cooking a stew, Esau came in from the open, famished. And Esau said to Jacob, "Give me some of that red stuff to gulp down, for I am famished," which is why he was named Edom. Jacob said, "First, sell me your birthright." And Esau said, "I am at the point of death, so of what use is my birthright to me?" But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Jacob then gave Esau bread and lentil stew. He ate and drank, and he rose and he went away. Thus did Esau spurn the birthright.
Very nice. Thank you for that. It's a fascinating part of the course, to be honest. I really love it. Jacob's coming in. He's got his apron on, and he's there, stirring this, lentil stew, seasoning it just right. He's got his whole cookery going. And Esau comes in, obviously unsuccessful in the hunt. So skilled hunter as he was, he got nothing, but that's okay. We all have rough days, so fine. He's home, he's schwitzy, and he's sweaty, and he's hungry. And Esau says, Esau hungry, give me red stuff. Man doesn't even speak, like it has a name, it's lentils, it's not that complicated. Give me some stew, whatever it is. One gets the sense that Esau doesn't have two brain cells to rub together. But that being said, he might be just exhausted. Let's be fair to Esau, right? Like maybe he's just tired and he's not good at formulating like good sentences right now. It's fine. We've all been there. You're hot, you're tired, you're frustrated, long day. Give me some of that stuff, and then he's sort of barking this at him. And that's why he's called Edom, because Adom means red in Hebrew. So Edom, that's the play on words there, that he has that name as well. Then Jacob, out of left field, goes, "Yeah, sure, give me your birthright." Esau's like, "What are you talking about? What's going on here? I'm here all hungry and tired and exhausted, and you're giving me a conversation about the birthright. What's wrong with you?" Hold on, sorry. Okay, there we go. So what's up with you? And Jacob, again, gets this out of him, gets the deal. Swear to me first, and he does. There's a great midrash that says that the rabbis sort of picture Esau so tired and so sort of ravenous that when he asks for the food, that Esau doesn't want to actually eat it. He wants to like open his mouth and have like Jacob pour the lentils into his mouth, like open like a snake, sort of like opening its maw and trying to get all this stuff in. But he does. He sells him the birthright. So it's a piece of paper. It's a transaction, right? But it's not like he has a piece of paper saying birthright on it, But he does this thing. Then Jacob gives him a prison meal of a bread and lentil stew. Like, here's some crust of bread and some lentils. Lentils are wonderful. Okay, I have a disclaimer. I'm sure lentils are delicious. Exactly. We shouldn't badmouth the lentil. I'm not trying to, disparage the lentil. It's very good for you. Glad of fiber. It can't be served medium rare, but it's still fine. And then, so there's a great little section here. It's easy to pass by it. And again, it's one of those which it's better in the Hebrew kind of, but it's neither here nor there right now. So Esau gets the bread and lentil stew. And just notice the very quick, it's very rapid. The verbs come fast. He ate, he drank, he rose, he left, right? Like it was a very sort of quick moment. Like Esau's a man of action. He's not a type of guy to sit around and chat. He's not going to have these like long discussions about his feelings and the way of the world, right? It's like Esau hungry, Esau want food, Esau eat, Esau leave. That's about it. I know he's not the Incredible Hulk, but that's sort of my head, where he is. Esau smash, and Jacob is there, like plotting and planning, and he's, because his brother, again, maybe not the brightest bulb. And so the question comes here, like, what do we think? Like, about this transaction? What do we think of this moment between brothers? Like, what do we? Jacob is obviously in the story going to be viewed as the good guy. At least when it's all said and done, right? Like Jacob is the one. Again, spoiler alert. Like Jacob is the one that we're going to look to more, obviously, than Esau. He's going to be our patriarch. He's going to be the one, a key player in the story, obviously. What do we think of this sort of moment? Is this justifiable on Jacob's end? What's going on here?
Well, wasn't it God's work? Because he said the younger one, the older one will serve the younger one.
Yeah, I mean, certainly God.
It was already ordained to be something, and this was a way of doing it.
Yeah, but he didn't know that right at the time, right? Like Jacob didn't have that information. And there's more than one way to skin a cat, I would also say as well. Like Jacob here is certainly a little devious, perhaps, maybe.
I find it like disturbing that the brother comes in, he says, I'm close to death, I'm so hungry, I need food so desperately, and then Jacob basically has to make a deal with him before he feeds him. That's kind of disturbing in a way.
It's a little rough,
Yeah.
It kind of pre-planned.
We had Rick chiming in here with, Jacob has a little leverage. He understands that, but also one also wonders, like, if I say, like, I'm so hungry I can eat a horse, like I'm not eating the horse, and so like one wonders if he is like almost exaggerating his condition. Like, I'm so hungry I could die. I'll even have those lentils, maybe. But you're right that Esau's in a weakened position here. He's in a poor position of bargaining, you can say at least. And I feel like Jacob's the kind of kid that would bet you something on a coin flip and would say like, heads I win, tails you lose.
Yeah.
To the kid who doesn't know any better.
Jacob's like the first Jewish lawyer.
Yeah, and he's like sort of finding a way to mess with his brother. That's got no situation. Yeah, exactly. Sign on the dotted line. You get nothing. You should have read
lentils. What do you mean nothing?
Yeah, you should have read the fine print. It's right there on the bottom. Yeah, it's like one of those Apple agreements, where it's like 800 pages, and you just said, yeah, I accept the conditions. And meanwhile, like, you just sold them your kidneys, but you don't know that yet until Steve Jobs, plus the income's coming for you afterwards.
For a ride, you got all my lentils.
All the lentils. What are you talking about? Yeah.
This is probably not the first time that Esau came in and said, I'm hungry, I have to eat something. And it's almost like Jacob set this up. You don't just say, give me your birthright. You kind of work through that in your mind. Gee, when he wants something, I want that birthright. So it's pre-planned on Jacob's part.
One gets the impression he had this set up. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like, give me your Xbox, or your whatever it is. Like this was very specific. And one can certainly argue, lentil deliciousness aside, this perhaps wasn't the most fair trade in the world,
Yeah. And you have to question, how often did Jacob really do the cooking?
Yeah. No,
I mean that wasn't a typical thing for men to do.
Well, I think that's part of this is that with Jacob, I think that's the divide in a way that sort of was Jacob, and he seemed to be more a homebody, someone who was, less typical, so to speak, when it came to what we'd assume the roles would be. And it is, by the way, just, and it's a little bit of a tangent, but while we're here, right, we can even see today about Jewish ideas of masculinity, right? And Jewish ideas of what the ideal is, right? And not to stereotype it too much, but not many of us are in the NFL. That's not sort of where we live in the realm of the outdoors and the athletics. Exceptions aside,
They write the checks, yes.
But you know,
Own the teams.
it's more likely for us to be the agent, than the player, so to speak, right? Or the owner than the player. And so, like Jacob, in and of itself, like we could sort of see in his representation, again, smart, clever, maybe not as good with his hands. You ask me to change a tire, I'm getting nowhere. I'm sure Esau would be doing just fine. I probably told you the story. My college roommate back in the day, he was from Oregon, and we actually had a very nice time together. We were roommates the entire time we were in college. The second year I come, to the new sort of dorm room area, and he had hung on the wall the deer skin that he shot this deer on vacation with a bow and arrow, doing this thing. And I'm like, yeah, that's not my experience. I'm from Queens, I don't do this. Like, I don't even eat deer, much less shooting deer, that's not what I'm doing. So it's like, yeah, exactly, gutting and skinning it, whatever it is, like, gross, So it is interesting, I guess, because of maybe these different models, and it's another class, to be fair, so we can maybe save it for another day. But you go to the early birth of the state of Israel, right? And at that point in time, in early 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s, you couldn't be a yeshiva bacher, in the soon-to-be state of Israel at that point. Get a shovel, like that was your job, right? Here's your hat. Here's your khaki pants. Here's a shovel. Clean out those marshes, right? Because Torah learning was all well and good, but it wasn't going to help you worth a darn to try to, create and settle a state. And so, those first settlers, the pioneers, they had to be field workers. They were people of the outdoors. And they were getting malaria out there, trying to get this stuff done. But it was a very different model in a way of sort of like the bronzed, sort of like sturdy Jewish man and Israeli out there that was sort of different than the European intellectual, studying all day long, right? It was a very different in terms of the beginnings of the state to have sort of the new Jew idea out there, the one who's going to be out there with all the farming equipment, and by the way, pretty nice sized gun eventually to help defend the land, right? So it was a different model of farmer, pioneer, soldier, rather than like Torah, student, davener, and it was going to be a little bit of a different mix. But that's another story for another day when we get to our Israel class at some point. Any questions about our devious, let's call him clever, sounds nicer. Clever Jacob and doofus Esau, yeah?
What good will the birthright be?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the question was, what good would the birthright be? It's a great question.
Rich, right?
What?
Isn't Isaac rich?
Isaac's got some cash, right? Isaac's got some money. So this idea of the birthright, of him being the firstborn, it would be part of the inheritance, right? And so going back to the ate, drank, rose, and went away kind of, part of it. Like Esau's a right now person. This whole thing is about right now for him. Give me the food, I'm gonna eat, I'm gonna go, and get on with my life. And Jacob's playing the long game. Jacob's like, you know what? I'll gladly give you a hamburger today. What is it, for like,
I'll gladly pay you tomorrow for a hamburger
pay you
today.
tomorrow for a hamburger today, and so wimpy, but yeah, like that's exactly, he's playing the long game here, and I think that's very interesting that he has that mentality. It's just a question of how much we love the ends here, the ends justifying the means, I guess. How much we sort of love his tactics. I think certainly Esau didn't love it, but again, how much of it was his own fault? Okay. Forgave him later, I mean, get over it, it'll be fine. Sandy, you want to pick up here? There was a famine in the land because there's always a famine in the land.
There was a famine in the land, aside from the previous famine that had occurred in the days of Abraham.
Lest you be confused by having the exact same story, because it is the exact same story. But keep on going, Sandy.
Oh my gosh. And Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, in Gerar. The Eternal had appeared to him and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Stay in the land which I point out to you. Reside in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. I will assign all these lands to you and to your heirs, fulfilling the oath that I swore to your father Abraham. I will make your heirs as numerous as the stars of heaven and assign to your heirs all these lands, so that all the nations of the earth shall bless themselves by your heirs. Inasmuch as Abraham obeyed me and kept my charge, my commandments, my laws, and my teachings." So Isaac stayed in Gerar.
So he's there, and so again, we remember our friend Abimelech from the Abraham story. And this is a nice little run for Isaac. He gets to talk to God for a little bit, or really God talks to him, but he has this conversation. Again, very familiar, assign these lands to you and your heirs, and because it relates to Abraham, right? That I swore to your father Abraham. Make your heirs numerous, stars of heaven, and land, nations that shall bless themselves, inasmuch as Abraham obeyed me and kept my charges, my commandments, etc., etc. So is this for Isaac's sake or Abraham's sake?
Well, he's trying to, I think, sounds like a little bit of a guilt thing. I don't know.
Maybe a little bit of a guilt thing here. I wonder when I read this how much Abraham is invoked, versus Isaac, because, I don't think God even mentions Isaac's name in this speech. I'll be with you, I'll bless you, because of the promise I made to your dad. I told your dad I'd look out for you, is how this feels to me in a way, or for the sake of your dad, I'm doing this, not on your own merits, but on the merits of your father. That's why this is happening, because you, my friend, not that special. A little rough reading, maybe. A little rough reading. But I look at this, I don't see a lot of this like, Isaac, you're awesome. I don't get that from these remarks just yet. Maybe we'll get a little bit more of that later. But first, we have to engage in a little bit of wife swapping once again, or at least wife selling. So, Leah, you want to pick up here when the men? You got on mute.
When the men of the place asked him about his wife, he said, "She is my sister," for he was afraid to say my wife, thinking the men of the place might kill me on account of Rebekah, for she is beautiful. When some time had passed, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looking out of the window, saw Isaac fondling his wife Rebekah. Abimelech sent for Isaac and said, "So she is your wife? Why then did you say she is my sister?" Isaac said to him, "Because I thought I might lose my life on her account."
So not as bad as the other ones, to be fair, but still not a great look. Family is family, and it's nice to love your family, but perhaps Isaac was going a little bit too far, at least in this scenario here where she's your, the sister. And so, it's not what you do with a sister, Isaac, it's not going to work so well. So they busted him on it. And Abimelech was like, why don't you just say she's your wife? It would have been fine, but we had this little ruse, like father, like son, about the sister wife thing. And then again, like we get the explanation here from Abimelech, which again is going to sound very familiar. Leah, you want to finish it off for us?
Abimelech said, "What have you done to us? One of the people might have lain with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us." Abimelech then charged all of the people, saying, anyone who molests this man or his wife shall be put to death. Isaac sowed in that land and reaped 100-fold the same year. The Eternal blessed him, and the man grew richer and richer until he was very wealthy. He acquired flocks and herds and a large household, so that the Philistines envied him.
Okay, so again, he had some coin before, has some more now, right? He's doing well, making a good living. You know, it's nice to be Isaac, and he's doing well. Not just too much to add there, other than just, you know, hard worker doing well. And now it's time for some more wells. Oh, this hand is better. Okay, here we go. Bob, you want to pick up there?
And the Philistines stopped up all the wells which his father's servants had dug in the days of his father Abraham, filling them with earth. And Abimelech said to Isaac, "Go away from us, for you have become far too big for us." So Isaac departed from there and encamped in the Wadi of Gerar, where he settled. Isaac dug a new well, which was being dug in the days of his father Abraham, and which the Philistine had stopped up after Abraham's death. And he gave them the same names as his father had given them.
Thank you, Bob. And so we see again a little bit more of this replay issue, right? So the Philistines, for no real reasons given, they decided to stop up these wells. I guess they were I don't know why does one stop up a well?
Why?
Yeah, I go.
Because you're mean. It's vain.
Yeah,
They're jealous of him.
Yeah, they don't like him, you know. Yeah, so yeah, they envy them, I guess, right? So they're gonna give him some ajita and fill up his father's wells. We don't like you. And Abimelech's trying to give him the boot, you know, and say, hey, you know, too many of you, you know, you're eating all of our food, you're, you know, taking all of our jobs, you know, get out of here. And so he does, he sort of leaves, goes into the Wadi of Gerar. Has everyone been to a Wadi before? Nice little valleys you sort of go in, you're not all rocks, but you're sort of there. You got to get out if the rains are coming because it fills up pretty quick. And so, but he's in the Wadi of Gerar. Then he digs them again. You know, you stopped up my wells. I'm going to dig them right back up to get the water. And again, because he remembered what his father named him, give him the exact same names, you know, of all the wells. And so he fixes the problem sort of on his own. But there's always a little tumult about such things. There's always a little bit of a fight, of course. Okay. Barbara, you want to read a little bit?
Sure. But Isaac's servants digging in the valley found a well of spring water. The herdsman of Gerar called to Isaac's herdsman, saying, "The water is ours." He named the well Esek, because they contended with him. And when they dug another well, they disputed over that one also. So he named it Shitna. He moved from there and dug yet another well, and they did not quarrel over it. So he called Rehoboth, saying, "Now at last the Eternal has granted us ample space to increase in the land."
Okay, so they're fighting over wells and they're fighting over water. All this fighting happening in the Middle East. Thank God we're done with that. Yeah. Any other questions about such issues here? They're just sort of dealing with these wells. Oh well, you know, there's a lot of wells going on.
Well,
okay.
If we didn't have any water, that would be a disaster. That is very important. The wells were very important.
Well, that's the whole thing. Is you have to have the water supply, right? You got to control the water.
Absolutely.
Much unlike today. So they're fighting over water and resources. And Isaac's, I guess pretty easy, right? You know, fighting over this one, fine. Take another one, fighting over this one, fine. Get to another one, okay, good. We're done fighting. Okay, let's move on to our next reader, Barbara. Do you like to read, Barbara?
Yes.
Okay, from there.
From there, he went up to Beersheba. That night, the Eternal appeared to him and said, I am the God of your father Abraham. Fear not, for I am with you, and I will bless you and increase your offspring for the sake of my servant Abraham. So he built an altar there and invoked the Eternal by name. Isaac pitched his tent there, and servants started digging a well.
All these wells, first he goes to Beersheba, which means 7 wells, right? So he's just going to the land of wells. And then God talks to him and says, in case you forgot from 10 minutes ago, I'm the God of your father Abraham. Remember me. I'm the big voice that comes from heaven. And fear not, I'm with you. And I'm going to be with you because of Abraham, your servant Abraham, right? I'm going to be with you for that reason. And so he builds an altar, a little sacrifice maybe, a little, fire, whatever it might be. And of course, we're back to digging more wells because, again, it's what we do, is digging the wells. So, again, he has this moment of revelation, right? He does have this moment right between him and God. Again, God does the talking and says, sort of lays it out again, to remind Isaac of the covenant, letting him know, reassuring him perhaps, of the covenant. And that's going to be maintained, which is good. Not bad for Isaac, good to know that God's with him, of course, very important. That reestablishment, that sort of trope, I think, is really important for the narrative. So Isaac, if we say that, looking at it a different way, if Isaac maybe suffers from a lack of confidence, right? We can imagine, for those of us who, may have had parents that cast a very long shadow, it's sometimes hard to sort of emerge from that in a way. You're always, so-and-so's son or daughter in other people's eyes, not your own person. And for Isaac, one can imagine this was a problem for him. His dad is Abraham. That's a pretty big old name, not only with God, right, but with the community, right, the greater community. They knew Abraham, like he was a famous person in the land, and someone who's very admired and very well respected. And here you have Isaac trying to, again, fill these shoes, and it's tough for him. And so he's just trying to dig his dad's wells up again. I can do it too. Look, Dad, even though Dad's gone, but trying to, again, I don't know, find his own. It's hard to find one's own space sometimes, I guess is what I'm trying to say. My father always jokes about, when we would go to synagogue together back when, I would have a Friday off or whatever it is, I'd go to services. And he would always remark how quickly he went from, being himself to being the rabbi's dad. It's just like, and that works obviously in different ways. Yeah. Where it's not always easy, when the people that we're related to cast sort of a big presence. And I think sometimes Isaac might struggle with that, and God's trying to say, hey, don't worry, I'm still here with you. Even if God reinforces the problem in a way by saying, for the sake of my servant Abraham, it's better than nothing. Maybe, you sort of talk to him, let him know that it's okay. It's tough. Any thoughts on that sort of part of it? Onwards. We got a little fighting to do. Barbara, want to give me one more?
And Abimelech came to him from Gerar with Hazuzath, his counselor, and Phicol, chief of his troops. Isaac said to them, why have you come to me, seeing that you have been hostile to me and have driven me away from you?
Now you want a favor? We don't know what it's going to be, right? But, here he is with, of course, good old Ahuzath. I've heard that name before. No, I haven't. And, of course, Phicol, who's never going to be mentioned again, I'm pretty sure. But if he is, again, not well known enough to really worry about him. But we have some of his dudes. You have to have dudes. If you're a king, you have to have some lackeys and henchmen, right? And so he's got his 2 guys with him that are going to help out, I guess. And they said, hat in hand, right? So they said, we now see plainly that the Eternal has been with you. And we thought, you're good with God. We want to be good with God too. So let's, have a good relationship. Let there be a sworn treaty between our two parties, between you and us. Let's make a pact that you won't do us harm. We haven't hurt you. It's cool between us now. You've always dealt kindly with you, and we sent you away in peace. From now on, be you blessed of the Eternal. So they have a little nosh, made a feast. They ate, they drank. Whenever you want to get together, getting good with somebody, it's good to have a meal. It's nice to have a little something to eat together. That's how we form friendships and relationships, with a little food. Early in the morning, they exchanged oaths. Isaac then says, it's time to hit the bricks, bade them farewell, and they departed in peace. And then more wells. The same day Isaac's servant came and told him about the well they had dug, and said to him, we have found water. And so he named it Sheba. And therefore, the name of the city is Beersheba, even to this day. And you can go and waste a day in Israel to go to Beersheba and see very little. If you want to get in trouble with the Orthodox, you can go there and get yelled at. They do that very well in Beersheba. When Esau was 40 years old, he took to wife Judith, daughter of Beri the Hittite, and Basemouth, daughter of Elon the Hittite, and they were a source of bitterness to Isaac and Rebekah. A little tough, little random thing here with Esau, didn't marry someone mom and dad love, sort of married this Hittite woman, Hittite women. He has two of them, Judith and Basemouth, the daughter of Elon. And so he has his two Hittite wives. It causes some family tension sometimes when he'll marry the one that mom and dad approve of, right? But Esau's more of getting the heart wants what the heart wants kind of guy, right? And so he's, he has these two Hittite women.
Yeah, he married two sixes.
But didn't want to marry the local girls, that happens sometimes, Mom's a little overbearing in this case, perhaps, and, didn't want to marry a girl like his mother, so he went the other way. And he married some Hittite women instead, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I tease Esau a little bit, but actually I really do feel bad for him as a character. I feel like he doesn't really, he can do no right. I think sometimes in these stories, and certainly in rabbinic imagination, he can do no right. What's his big sin? Being a little hungry and maybe marrying outside the respected or the ones that your parents want you to marry, right? These are his biggest crimes so far. But in the rabbinic literature, he becomes like history's greatest monster. So they were a source of bitterness. Okay, we have just enough time to watch poor Esau get messed around again, speaking of. So, Rick, we're back to the starting lineup here, back to the top of the lineup, I should say.
Right.
When Isaac was old
and his eyes were too dim to see, he called his older son Esau and said to him, my son. He answered, here I am. And he said, I am old now, and I do not know how soon I may die. Take your gear, your quiver and bow, and go out in the open and hunt me some game. Then prepare a dish for me such as I like, and bring it to me to eat, so that I may give you my innermost blessing before I die.
A really nice, sweet sort of moment between father and son, right? I'm getting old, I'm getting up there in years. I want to be really good right now. Some lamb stew, maybe some whatever it is. I picture it being some sort of like stew kind of dish, but whatever it is, right? Hunt me some game. And then apparently Esau can cook a little bit too, because he says, prepare me a dish, right? So actually, to be fair, then it's probably on the grill. I think Esau had like one of those like big, like, charcoal grills, whatever it might be, or propane accessories. And he's there with the knobs, and he, find me fire, and then he's there grilling up a big old hock of something, a big old leg, whatever it might be. like when they roast the lamb on the spit kind of thing. Like that's probably what he's doing. It's all about the seasoning, really. I think that's the question. It's like you got to have your, your different herbs and spices. The Colonel's famous herbs and spices to sort of make this dish up here. And so he's gonna do that. Give me my food, and then I'm gonna, give you my blessing after you make me whatever it is. The Brazilian steakhouse at his place. Give me meat on a stick. Everything tastes better when it's on a stick. Anyway, give me a little more, Rick.
Rebekah had been listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. When Esau had gone out into the open to hunt game to bring home, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, I overheard your father speaking to your brother Esau, saying, bring me some game and prepare a dish for me to eat, that I may bless you with the Lord's approval before I die.
So we have Rebekah here. There might be some Eve on the floor, because there was eavesdropping. It's completely there, finding all the Eves on the floor. So it's just, there she is, overhearing this conversation. One gets the sense that maybe she wasn't meant to be listening to this, but again, that's my reading of it, because then when he's done, she goes out to Jacob and sort of gives, and she says, I overheard, your father's speaking. So getting some dicey waters with Rebekah, maybe? I don't know. I don't love it. I don't love it for Rebekah, I gotta say. But let's keep it going and sort of see. Tyler, now my son.
Where am I?
8.
I've ADHD. Thank you.
No, it's okay.
Bring me some. Is that too late? Bring some game and prepare a dish for me to eat, that I may bless you with the Lord's approval.
Yeah, we're further.
Right next one. Should be now my son. It's the very next sentence.
Yeah, right there. Sorry, yeah, now. Yep.
Now, my son, listen carefully as I instruct you. Go to the flock and fetch me 2 choice kids, and I will make them a dish for your father, such as he likes. Then take me to your father to eat, in order that he may bless you before he dies.
Shenanigans! I call shenanigans. Okay, we have now a little plot. Jacob's gonna go, and by the way, much easier if you had them already in the house, right? Or at least in the farm, like he's going to the petting zoo, and Isaac's out there, trying to find something wild, and Jacob is going back into the backyard. Get me, 2 choice kids. Are those goats, technically speaking, at that point, when we say kids? That's what you'd use for a goat, right? I know that from Chad Gad, yeah, one little kid, right?
Yeah.
So, maybe it's goat meat that we like. Nothing wrong with that. Make a dish for your father. We get a little stew, a little something. Then he's going to eat in order that he bless you before he dies. So Rebekah is acting a little bit shifty, maybe, a little bit...
Underhanded.
Underhanded, thank you. Underhanded, yes. It's a little tough here. Now Jacob's gonna answer back here. Tyler, want to pick up? Jacob answered.
But my brother Esau is
Yeah.
But my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am smooth-skinned. If my father touches me, I shall appear to him as a trickster, and bring upon myself a curse, not a blessing. But his mother said to him, your curse, my son, be upon me. Just do what I say and go fetch them for me.
Yeah, so interesting. Jacob's got some reservations. He's a little bit worried about this plan here. He can sort of see where the problems might lie. Esau's hairy. It looks like he's wearing a carpet, like very hairy dude. And Jacob, not so much, Jacob's smooth skin. And so Jacob's able to parse this out and say, hey, look, if he touches me, it's going to be a problem. It's great phrasing, this idea, I shall appear to him as a trickster. there's an idea that this phrasing is actually very specific. The idea that at that time there was a lot of negativity, a lot of concern about these people who were sort of charlatans, like people who tried to get one over on other people. And that it was a really sort of low thing to do, to sort of appear to be like this kind, to do this kind of behavior, right? To sort of be underhanded, as so nicely put, or to have this idea of trying to, finagle things, that weren't really yours. And so Jacob is sort of worried, about his dad seeing him like that, viewing him even in that light, even though frankly Jacob has, as we've seen already with the birthright, been a little bit of a trickster, right? Been a little bit, so he's sort of been in that world already. But the idea being, if dad finds out, right? If dad finds out, I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to, feel ashamed, and even more so the state of get a curse instead of a blessing. So he doesn't want any part of it. But mom says, don't worry about it. I'll take the heat. If this thing all blows up, right? If this is a problem, I'll be the one to bear the curse. Just do what I say and get it done. And so Rebecca is sort of the one making all this happen. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
So like, what's Jacob's culpability here?
Well, Jacob goes along with it, and he doesn't say he doesn't want to do it because it's dishonest. He says, I don't want to do it because I might get caught.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think everyone heard that at home, this idea that he's not,
Yes.
demurring because he's worried about the ethical implications. He's just worried he's going to get busted.
Right.
And so Jacob certainly doesn't have clean hands, maybe hairy hands in this moment, but not clean hands at this point. And he's going to be red-handed in a minute because, they're going to get the kids, they're going to get the goats to eat. Sharon, you want to pick up here? He got them?
Sure. He got them and brought them to his mother, and his mother prepared a dish such as his father liked. Rebekah then took the best clothes of her oldest son Esau, which were there in the house, and had her younger son Jacob put them on. And she covered his hands and the hairless part of his neck with the skins of the kids. Then she put in the hands of her son Jacob the dish and the bread that she had prepared.
Esau's got to be just really darn hairy, if we have to worry about these like skins of the kids on him. Hirsute, is that the word? He's very hairy. So Rebecca's again got, she has the animals. She makes a nice cholent out of them, perhaps, and then steal my blessing, steal my birthright, steal my clothes. It's his best clothes. He's taking out of Esau's closet here. He's getting the suit and tie. He's getting the Armani out from Esau's closet here. And then the mom puts the hair on him and some Gorilla Glue, whatever she used, at least something to adhere this thing, double-sided tape. And then she gave him the food, the dish and the bread. You gotta have a little bread too. Gotta sop up the juices. I'm telling you, it's gotta be stew. I'm going all in on the stew or the cholent on this.
Rabbi, why did she put did she have to put the skin on the hairless neck? Is it considered less masculine to be hairless, or what's the idea of that?
I think it's just one of those where if Isaac reaches out to touch him, like, oh, come here, my boy, sort of give him a hug, whatever it is. I read this over and over again, and I think about poor Isaac. I mean, my God, man's been through a lot, in his life, and here he has his wife, playing this game on him here, and he's too blind and enfeebled to sort of know what's going on, and they're completely going around him, and Jacob goes, sure, Ma, okay, because again, that's sort of where he is. And so they're there, and so she has them all hairy and giving them the food and the clothes and everything, And Esau's there, you know, outside in his underwear because his clothes got stolen. You know, it's like, it's not nice. Not nice to Esau. Okay, Sharon, give me one more. Then he went.
He went to his father and said, Father. And he said, Yes, which of my sons are you? Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Pray, sit up and eat of my game, that you may give me your innermost blessing. Isaac said to his son, How did you succeed so quickly, my son? And he said, Because the eternal your God granted me good fortune.
It's very interesting as sort of we read through this narrative, right? That, again, flipping it a little bit, right, is how much does Isaac really know? What does he suspect in this moment? Because as soon as Jacob's in the room, right, and says, Father, he goes, which one are you? You know, like, so one can read it differently. One can sort of read it as he's so out of it, he barely knows like what's going on. Or one can read it as Isaac still has some wits about him. And, you know, it's sort of already dubious of what's happening because, again, they're brothers, but they have different voices, right? You know, they don't have the exact same voice. And so as soon as Jacob, you know, I also sometimes picture like Jacob trying to change his voice a little bit, but it doesn't have that really in the text. I'm thinking of, you know, Christian Bale as Batman, you know, sort of like, I'm Esau, you know, it's like, you know, that way it can throw off the, you know, the thing here, because if you're using this regular voice, you're gonna know. And so I don't know how that's gonna work, but certainly like the voice is different, I think is the greater concern here. And because of the voice, does Isaac suspect you know, anything here, or is he just going along with it, going with the flow, or does he really have no idea who's in front of him? I don't know. Sam, do you want to pick up here?
Sure. Isaac said to Jacob, come closer that I might feel you, my son, whether you are really my son Esau or not. So Jacob drew close to his father Isaac, who felt him and wondered, the voice is the voice of Jacob, yet the hands are the hands of Esau. He did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau. And so he blessed him and he said, are you really my son Esau? And when he said, I am, he said, serve me and let me eat of my son's game that I may give you my innermost blessing. So he served him and he ate, and he brought him wine and he drank.
Yeah, and so again, like you sort of read this, and Isaac does feel a little, like he's a little suspicious. You know, come a little closer. You know, let me feel your hairy neck. You know, whatever it might be, to make sure that it's the real person. You know, oh Esau, what big teeth you have. You know, it's just, you know, let me get closer and see what's happening here. And the hands are the hands of Esau. And it's harder to fake, you know, that, I think, in Isaac's mind. Maybe, you know, Esau has a cold, right? You know, maybe he's a little hoarse from being whatever it is. And so maybe the voice might be a little off. But then he asks him again, are you really my son Esau? Yeah, sure. Just what you said, Esau. And then he goes, serve me, let me eat of my son's game. He doesn't even like, you know. So I don't know. I think Isaac might have, again, a suspicion or two, you know, in this reading. But it's interesting again because we already know the score. You know, we know Rebecca's complicit. We know Jacob is complicit, and the question is Isaac also complicit, sort of in this scam, and sort of, you know, he's just going along with it too, or was he truly so famished? I sort of tend to the second one, you know, as we know, but that, you know, he's sort of out of it. But they're there, you know, and taking advantage of the, you know, the husband, father, and enfeebled, you know, Isaac is not a great look. I think we can all agree. It's not really a great look for Jacob and for Rebecca. I think some marital counseling might have had to happen after this thing ended. You know, time to go to couples therapy. I got 8:01. So let's remember where we are here. Well, we're basically right at the blessing of Jacob. And so we'll pick up from there next time around. Sort of a cliffhanger, but we will come back. Then his father Isaac said to him, we will come back to pick up there. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Right?
Okay,
Good
Thank
class.
thank you.
And we'll
Thank
catch up next week, and we're going to continue with our adult and extra class.
Okay.